yourselves comfortable with where you want to be, now's the time. Welcome, everybody. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to be hosting this event this evening as my father, Rod Peterson, is being entered into the Hall of Honor. Many of you know my father already for varying lengths of time, various types of interactions, but of course, being his daughter, I have a perspective that is unique. I learned valuable lessons from him. As you can imagine, the childhood was interesting with him around. I learned valuable lessons like I could color the pigs blue. I learned things like we could have family story nights weekly. Now, what this meant was everybody in the family had to come up with a tale that they were going to tell the rest of the family on this particular story night. My stories were pretty much an even balance of taunts thinly veiled toward my sister and bathroom humor, but my father was considerably better at these, and there was a story that he told that stuck with me and I think is appropriate to the occasion. And it's called The Little Purple Tree. Once upon a time, in a beautiful forest, there was a little purple tree. All around the little purple tree, the other trees grew bigger and lusher and reached toward the sky until their leaves formed a canopy that blocked out all the light coming down below to the little purple tree. The little purple tree didn't mind. The little purple tree remained the little purple tree. And as always happens in stories like this, disaster struck in the form of woodcutters who started to chop down all of the biggest and all of the most beautiful and all of the most lush trees in that forest. But the little purple tree knew a secret. All of their roots were connected. And if they sent all of their beautiful strength and all of their beautiful love out to those who needed it most through their interconnected roots, those trees would become so strong that they would break the woodcutter's axes. And that is what happened. My father's a little purple tree. My gentle introduction to the poetry community was as AV Tech for Tree Reading Series when my father was the director. And I learned a lot through watching him. What I think he did with that series was he elevated it, and not in a way that was hierarchical, but he elevated the sense of community, and moreover, more importantly, he elevated poets and poetry. He gave them the attention and the respect and the affection that they so well deserve as creators of beauty in a world like this. If you've ever had the pleasure to be introduced by him, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. He thinks about the poets, he considers them, and he reveres them. And that led to three things that I'm going to talk with you about, three things that I think are massive, massive contributions to poetry, not just here in Ottawa, but here in Canada and internationally. So we're going to start with the first thing that was exclusively done by my father, and that was getting us our Parliamentary Poet Laureate program again. Dad had an idea, and he said, we don't have a Parliamentary Poet Laureate at the moment, so I'm going to take this list of senators and I'm going to go zoop, 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 zoop. Oh, look, it's Tommy Banks. One ringy-dingy to Tommy Banks, who used to have family dinners at his house. And in an alarmingly quick fashion for government, we had a Parliamentary Poet Laureate again. Secondly, Dad had another idea, and that idea was we needed Poets Laureate for Ottawa as well. In conjunction and as a part of Verse Ottawa, he spearheaded that effort, and lo and behold, we've had a number of years now of Poets Laureate in Ottawa. Thank you, Dad. And the third and last thing I want to bring up is the reason where all these lovely faces are in this room right now, because Dad had an idea. And that idea was to bring all these brilliant minds and brilliant organizers that already existed in Ottawa, bring them together and make something truly special and truly collaborative and truly important. And that's where we are now. We're at VERSeFest. So again, thank you for that idea, Dad, and thank you to everyone who helped him to bring that together. And it's at this juncture that I'm going to call my father up to the stage. Please welcome Rod Peterson up here, and David O'Meara is going to come out here too.
Things about having electric ears is that when you put a mask on and take the mask off, your electric ears go with it. There. Now what the hell am I going to say? I have to say that did this out of love. I told there's a number of times if those folks knew how much I loved them, they'd be embarrassed. I do. Mostly what motivated me to do any of that stuff was just that. Respect for everybody. Everybody gets their chance, and everyone walks away happy. When it was in September of 2010, I asked all of the leaders of various poetry groups and a couple of to meet me at the Manx pub. Damn it, they came. And I said, we want to do two things. We want to have a poetry festival, and we wanted to have poets laureate. And we wanted to get together, because that getting together is what's going to make it happen. Well, they were enthusiastic about it. And the next thing that we discussed was, when are we going to have the first festival? And the plan had been for 2012, but one of the more brilliant of our number, David O'Meara, said, to hell with that, we'll do it in 2010, 11 rather. And we did. And it came off, and it was beautiful. We had the object of inclusion was important. We had women, had women, we had various kinds of forms of poetry, and one of the forms of poetry that was almost surpassed was the spoken word. Once we had the spoken word, we had multilingual people, we were on the rails. David was the first festival director, artistic director, and he threw himself into it, and the amazing amount of work and effective work at that. We had that festival in 2011 and for many years afterward. The inclusion of spoken word into that was for some people problematic, especially for the asshole who said that this poetry is not meant to be spoken. He didn't read very well. So anyway, the spoken word folks came along and with us, and we had special events for them, and some of the events were mixed. Some of the events were mixed with including people like sorry, I'm a little overcome. I didn't think this would happen, but it did. Rusty Prisk and Kevin Matthews. Those two folks were, I've never in my life seen somebody, or known somebody with the moral fiber of my friend here, Rusty Prisk. He stood by his word to the general poetry community in Canada. That people were not going to be disregarded, were going to be included, and there was one individual who needed to be taken down a notch or two. Rusty took him down, and for the next 10 years, Rusty suffered this individual harassing him for those years. What did he do? He stuck to it. Wonderful man. Another wonderful man is Kevin Matthews. Kevin is such a beautiful person. He's more widely liked, I think, than anybody in the community. And that's because of the gentleman with a bright future, terrific poet, and prized by me. Another one that was there at the beginning was Monty Reid. Monty plays guitar, so we'll be pleased to be known as Monty, the slow hand Reid. He and his band, three-person band, have graced the stages of many places in Ottawa, and we're all the better for it. Monty has contributed in a major way to poetry in Ottawa. He's given himself to the festival, to the VERSeFest, to Verse Ottawa, and the Laureate program, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude, as we do Rusty, Kevin, and David. I'm altogether too emotional about this, so I'm going to have to sit down. But please know, Rusty, Dave, where are you, Kevin, and Monty? You guys have done a good job for this city, for this poetry community. And it wouldn't be half as strong, half as vital, were it not for the work that you do. So thank you, all of you.
David O'Mara.
I'm going to use those steps because I brought them in and nobody's using them. Rod, we're here to celebrate and thank you for your contribution and your dedication to poetry in Ottawa, Canada, the world. You've done so much. The one thing I've learned from knowing Rod is that if he gets an idea, we're all in big trouble because we have to follow through on it. As Monty, Rusty, Kevin, Allison, myself, hosts of others who were there at those meetings at the beginning, it was a kind of a fly-by-night operation. It got better. The festival got better. It became such a world-class festival through those efforts, and it continues to be with Monty and Avonlea. The last few years, it's been such an amazing festival. It's an event that is really catching on everywhere for written and spoken word, and it was Rod's idea that started it. I'm not going to read, I'm just going to tell a quick story. I got a million of them. But one of my favorite stories from the beginning of VERSeFest is after the second festival, we found ourselves financially challenged. So we came up with the idea of having one of these things called crowdsourcing funding, which was fairly new at the time. And so we decided to give it a shot. And I think Rusty suggested that he'd heard that it was good if you put together a video to put on your website to sort of create some visuals and interest through that. So we had this idea of, I had this little suitcase, kind of an old doctor's bag, and I said to Rod, what if we put a VERSeFest tag on it and we'll take it around to the different travel areas in Ottawa, and it'll be like VERSeFest is arriving in Ottawa. So Rod's like, I'm game. So we spent most of the day driving around to the bus station, the train station, the airport. At one point, I think the bag was hitchhiking on the highway. And Rod would film it, and I would, place this bag on, say, the carousel at the airport. Or somewhere at the train station, and for some reason we didn't get arrested. So it all turned out well, and through everyone's contribution in the community, not only in Ottawa but across the country, we were able to gather up enough money to continue forward and enter into funding land. Anyway, Rod, it's been a great honor to work with you over the years and to be your friend, and if nobody deserves this honor more than you.
realize I kind of shortchanged David O'Meara on the intros because my dad did such a grand job of organizing folks, but I do want to mention that David is, he has a fantastic book out right now, Masses on Radar from Coach House, so I encourage you to pick it up. He's phenomenal. And the next person I would like to bring up is Kevin Matthews, who's a Winnipeg-raised, Ottawa acclimatized poet and propagandist, which I love. And also a claim to fame for Kevin Matthews is he's the first poet who ever made me ugly cry at a reading. Please welcome Kevin Matthews.
Hi. It is so good to be here. I have no idea. It feels like a kind of like a time warp in a whole new universe all at the same time. It's wonderful. I've been thinking a lot about different things to say, but I'm going to let go of most of them, except to say that, Rod, you mentioned that you did it all out of love, and that I forget exactly how you put it, but that maybe we may not have realized it was always clear, always. And as much as putting VERSeFest on its feet was an intervention in the Ottawa poetry community, it was an intervention in each of our lives too. And we really appreciated it, we grew through it, and it was around the same time, within a couple of years of VERSeFest starting, another cultural festival in Ottawa started up, Arboretum. And I remember on their website, the first thing that it said on their website was, "We're totally doing this." And I thought, yeah, that's it. Like that's the feeling. There's a bunch of us here who can really relate to that. And it was a really amazing time just to realize that we could just do something that you said was going to happen. We didn't know how to create. And here it is. It's really wonderful. I'll read this piece because it was always intended to be kind of about what we've been trying to do all along, and I'm pretty sure you like it. So I should tell you something, but where do I begin? A spark, a smile, a scrap of skin, or this space and time that I'm standing in. I will paraphrase myself as I repeat that the part of you that dies is just the meat. But what else is there? What part of you that's less meat, more air? Your voice, of your body yet apart, a rippling round extension of your heart, just pressure waves propagated out through the air, and at Mach 1, it gets there. And you really don't even need ears to be aware. Sure, you see my body mediated by electromagnetic radiation, but my voice is a much more textured and pulpy sensation. Poets, can I get an affirmation? Can we share our voices in syncopated, mouth-to-mouth reciprocation? And from generation to generation, send it down through time to sing a song. We have voices to raise because we die. Waste no breath, then. Expound our joyous noise with every exhalation. For the ancestors who gave it, raise it. For the burning of the sun that fuels our days and ways, raise it. For ants, Aristotle, aluminum absinthe bottles, baseball, balloons, Charlie Brown, Castro, cold fusion, choice, whatever raises your voice, praise it, lift your voice, and celebrate it. Raise it. For Death Stars, dachshunds, eggs, elephant excrement, figs, Fibonacci, fields far away, waste of breath, some might say, or nonsense, but I maintain that nonsense is the language of that mysterious 90% of the brain. So mix metaphors with muesli and get to crunching that data and digest and regurgitate later in grand schemes and Gemeinschaft and Gesundheit and geriatrics and gerunds and herringbones and horse races and household errands, icicles, ichthyosaurus, speak for us. Can I get it once more from the chorus? Raise it! This is all to say the content is usually overrated anyway. If your poem is about poetry, that's fine with me. If it's in Urdu, Esperanto, Swahili, Tagalog, or binary, we're really here to celebrate the voice, you see, of Kismet, and kinetics, and labor, and lipstick, and madness, and metric. In the north, numismatics, or orchestral scores, pills, paleontology, and pores, waste breath. That's what breath is given to us for. Quickly reading sentences to unsuspecting visitors. Why? Exactly. Speaking of why, speaking of Z, whatever's on the top of your head, from Burger King to pro wrestling, from chatting in the food court to chanting at the blood sport. This is how we weave along the song of all humanity. So sing of popular science, or the Scottish Highlands, or an end to violence, or your favorite kitchen appliance, because the only waste of breath is silence. So much, Rod, for everything. Yeah, thank you. Congratulations.
The next person I'd like to call up here is Rusty Prisk. And he has this wonderful, short, 2-sentence bio. Has worked with the slam poetry community in Ottawa and nationally, as well as with Art Poetry Magazine and VERSeFest. He founded the VERSeFest Hall of Honor, which, I mean, doesn't even begin to cover the contributions that this individual has made to the poetry community. Brilliant person, brilliant poet. Please welcome Rusty Prisk.
Coming here to honor Rod. I wasn't expecting him to say all these nice things about me. I was thinking back to kind of what Rod meant to me. You know, we talked about what he meant to the community, but what he meant to me. And I think that first meeting, I'd been running a show called Capital Slam, or helping them, and Kevin gave me a call and said, "There's this meeting, and they would like you to come." You know, so I went to the meeting, and here's Rod, so excited about the idea of bringing spoken word in, you know. And I'll admit, coming in, I was a little cynical. I was like, okay, we're getting good numbers. They want us to bring it in because, you know, they're hoping to bring more people in. But that was so not the case. It was so much like he was really excited to hear what we had to say, you know. And what that meant to me, you know, this door swings both ways, because up until that point, when I say I was involved in slam and spoken word, I say that's all I was involved in, you know. But Rod specifically bringing us in, making me feel so welcome, that in turn opened up the world of page poetry to me, you know. So this whole world, like, obviously we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the festival without Rod, but I can't imagine what my life would have been like if I didn't meet him, you know, because, well, that show I ran is gone now. If other things hadn't happened, that I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't met Rod Peterson. So they asked me to do poetry. I had a choice before I came that I was agonizing over, in that I am certainly mostly known for like slam style spoken word, but I haven't written a slam style poem in 5 or 6 years, you know. Things happen, things change. I'm writing a lot of poetry, and I'm working on what I hope is a book, but it's not happy, okay? So I'm gonna read some poetry, but be aware, it's not happy. Poets that will follow will maybe make you happy again. Just be aware that I'm doing fine. I'm happy, you know, I am happy. I'm very happy. I'm not sick. People who know, I'm not sick. I may be sick again, but I'm not sick. I'm doing fine. But, okay, so this one's called Negative Sky. And there's a few, but before Monty panics, they're not 3-minute long slam. Much more. They're those ceiling tiles. What are they called? Square and look like styrofoam, all white but pitted with black holes. Not the regular holes you used to see in offices and the like, the irregular holes that appear to follow no preset pattern. They're like a photo negative of the night sky with black stars and white space. Constellations created to impose order where there is none. This sky is much closer than the real one. So there's little time to develop the mythology, to give significance to those black stars as they rush past your gurney. How many times are these the last stars someone sees, but they get no chance to turn them into gods and find a place among them? Then I have a series that I've been working on that is, tentatively called A Dictionary of Me. It's probably not going to be called X, I actually don't like that title, but it's poems for each letter. And I'm going to do a couple of those and then I'll pass it off. So this one is B. Headscarves used to mean sick. Women with augmented hair loss wrapped their domes in colorful silks that nobody commented on, knowing what it meant. Always women. Men with less hair was less out of the ordinary, unless they were young. And then their friends would shave to the skin in an act of solidarity. When they told me I needed chemo, my first thought was not of sickness. When the doctor asked if I had any questions, I didn't ask about nausea or pain. I asked if my beard was going to fall out. I wanted to know if I was going to wear an invisible silk scarf, colors hidden, as any who saw me would know from my missing trademarked whiskers that I was sick. I was told no. My beard was unlikely to fall out. I secretly wished it would. And let's do one more. This is W. Groundhogs in rows, some with stocking caps to hide chemical patterned baldness. Cheekbones cut glass, cutting weight, regretting every diet wish and calorie count. Japanese snow lay dusting and denying first spring shoots, imposing a turn of the cycle. A hole for each, making a tunnel with the sun at one end. Each pokes up their head and hopes desperately to see their shadow. As I say, I'm very happy. don't judge by that. Again, the debt owed to Rod Peterson can't be measured in just these simple words. So thank you so much. Thank you VERSeFest for inducting Rod. As Jennifer said, I founded the Hall of Honor, and this is exactly why. These are the reasons. This is the reasons why. And then I want to thank Rod for then turning around and asking us to come in and share. So thank you all.
Our last person to come up and speak before we hear from Phil Hall will be Monty Reid. And he's got a great first sentence in his bio too. Monty Reid is a Canadian poet living in Ottawa. Which he is, but he's a whole lot more than that. 3-time nominee for the Governor General's Award, won the Alberta's Stephen G. Stephenson Award 3 times. This is actually my 3rd time introducing Monty, and I think he might be really disappointed right now because the other 2 times I've introduced him, it's been in song. But oh, Monty, please believe me, you're welcome up here on stage. Please welcome Monty Reid.
Wouldn't have known what to do without that bit of song. Thank you. And thank you, Rod. I have lots of stories about the old days too. and I won't tell too many of them. But Rod was always a stubborn son of a gun. And we did have some disagreements. And I don't think I've ever met anybody who was just so determined to do whatever was in his head to do. And thank goodness for that. Because, as Jennifer's noted, Ottawa's Poet Laureate, Verse Ottawa, and the renewed Parliamentary Poet Laureate program all grew out of his determination. I can remember fairly early on we were talking about and starting to get in international poets in, and that was one thing I was particularly interested in. And Rod suggested this one poet who I hadn't heard of before and who wasn't well known, did have one book out in the States. And but her background was, at the time we thought Russian, but it turns out to be not Russian, but Ukrainian. And she was really pretty. And I refused to chase her and to get her for this festival because I thought we were just responding to how great she looked in her promotion photographs. And I was absolutely wrong about that because she has gone on to considerable fame. And Rod was right in recognizing her skill and her talent early on. And the sad thing about it is, now that she's well known, I've tried to bring her to VERSeFest for the last 2 or 3 years, and we can't afford her. So you're going to have to pretend for about 2 or 3 minutes that I'm Velgina Mort, and I'm going to read one of her poems from her new, extremely well-received volume, Music for the Dead and the Resurrected. Nocturne for a Moving Train. That does work. The trees I've glimpsed from the window of the night train were the saddest trees. They seemed about to speak, then vanished like soldiers. The hostesses handed out starched linens for sleep. Passengers bent over small icons of sandwiches. In a tall glass, a spoon mixed sugar into coffee, banging its silver face against the facets. The window reflected back a figure struggling with white sheets. The posts with names of towns promised the possibility of words for what flew by. In lit-up windows, people seemed to move as if performing surgery on tables. Chestnut parks sighed the sighs of creatures capable of speech. Radiation, an etymology of soil, directed into the future, prepared a thesis on the new origins of old roots, on secret, disfiguring missions of misspellings, on the shocking betrayal of apples, on the uncompromised loyalty of cesium. My childish voice, my hands, my feet, all the things that live on the edges of me, now. The chestnut parks are about to speak, but now they vanished. I was extracted from my apartment block, chained to the earth with iron playgrounds, where iron swings rose like oil wells. I was extracted before I could dig a language out of air with my childish feet. I was extracted by beaks, storks, cranes, See the conductor punching out eyes of sleeping passengers. What is it about my face that turns it into a document, into a ticket stretched out by a neck? Why does unfolding a starched bedding feel like skinning someone invisible? Why can't the spoons, head down in the glasses, stop screaming? Shh. The chestnuts are about to speak. Thank you, Rod. It's been wonderful working with you for all these many years. And we're all grateful for the work you've done and very pleased that you received this honor. Thanks again.
And it is now my great pleasure to introduce the incredible Phil Hall. He's lived in Windsor, Vancouver, and Toronto, now lives near Perth. While in Vancouver, he was a member of the Vancouver Industrial Writers Union and the Men Against Rape Collective. In 2011 and 12, he won the Governor-General's Literary Award for Poetry in English and Ontario's Trillium Book Award. In 2015, Wilfrid Laurier University Press published Guthrie Clothing, The Poetry of Phil Hall, a selected collage. Hall is the founder of Flat Singles Press and the founder of the Page Lectures at Queen's University. And most recently, Peddler Press has published Niagara and Government 2020, and Beautiful Outlaw Press has published Toward a Blacker Ardor. Now, I find it difficult to express how much it means to me personally to have Phil Hall reading at this event, and I think that I can say the same for my father, how meaningful it is for us. Phil Hall is not only a brilliant light in terms of poetry, but he is profoundly loved with good reason. Please welcome Phil Hall.
Good evening. I'm a little ashamed of my biography. It's kind of big. I don't know how to behave or dress. I'm a fearful person, but language is fierce. Rod asked me to read tonight. When I think of Rod, I think I had one reader. And when I started to write difficult things, he was the first reader for some of that. So I thank him. I like men who follow their dreams too, like Joseph. And Rod told me a story. He was a career pilot in the Air Force. That was his life. He was on a layover in Halifax. He went into a bookstore, found a book by Leonard Cohen, came out and sat that afternoon reading it, quit the Air Force. I admire that a great deal. The best thing I did with Rod, the thing that sticks with me, is we went together to pick up Philip Levine at the airport and his lovely wife. And I'm not kind of sure why it gets to me, but Rob inviting me to go along when he picked up Levine seems like a very important gesture to me, to be included. So I'll read a couple poems from Niagara Government last year, and a couple poems from Toward a Blacker Ardor, and then with a couple little new things. I picked these because I thought Rod would like them. Ontario's aggregate hills are low and uncomplaining in their grandeur. Now the smell of water mint, now the smell of Jimson weed rises from looking that far. I ran away to join the circus and found only a Pepsi truck on its side in the ditch in the sun. Dark, hot glass bottles, shapely in the grass, were strewn along both sides of the road north, the Galway Road. Free foreign medicine, and no way to uncap any of it but violence. I'd like to say I disavowed my inheritance, rage. Log swamps, sunken floating bridges, rusted wire, a hawthorn outgrew to grip. But I poisoned myself, a sideshow, angrily for years. I'd like to say I turned off map and found in burnt quartz crevices blueberries. But the blueberries I ate tasted of road salt and paw, tasted of pissed-on crazy quilts, and those 19th century studio portraits with their middle parted oily hair and fake Greek backdrops. Too many exacerbated collusions, too many bony suckers. Landfill, I spit shield ink. My choice was vanish, not far, or varnish. But to vanish applies a varnish. Now the smell of water mint, now the smell of Jimson weed rises from looking that far. I cherish my earned balm, distance. I am not reconciled. As we become less apt, like old words bandied about, cheapened, misused, until there is no give to, no speaking well those words, appropriated by cheats, by hi-hats. Words we once pegged out, wide, snug, and slept in, and made out in, are bivouac words, solid, bogart, threads, drag. Now husks, laughed at, or fluffed to mean condolessness, insurgents, disenfranchisement, reprioritization, for shared mammal needs, such big words, leached of history and turned as bitterly against us. Yet, despite everything, we still love our small, blunt first words. They only look simple, but are perennial riddles, fingerings. We still find in words like union or campesino the great beauty and elegance and defiance they had. You will always be a great beauty to me, like the words rhubarb,
defunct, or fuzz. As we age, and the rotten bastards out to get us become also our own bodies itemized. To face new attacks from within, I will stand on one leg and talk flapdoodle into manifesto. I will see you the way I've always seen you, as many, Damare. I will say each of our secret names, not as crumpled, discontinued coinage, but like 60s lyrics. Take the load off Fanny. We didn't really understand them, but we believed in them. Obscurity, the blur of pride. Let me read you something. I know this is scarcely credible now, as we cabin ourselves in cold and the motions of panic, and ourselves destroy each other, performing music and extinction, and the great dreams pass on to the common good. Phyllis Webb. Nothing has prepared us for this new ruin of hope in, at once, politics, weather, health, language. When maple leaves flip silver, as if wind were rising from the ground, I see no silver. It is painted over, black. Under my green is black now, a dull black, flat, ainted, unleaf-like. Where is the silver light that once told me how to wear Lorca's trumpet shells de la Fièvre in coffers, bunkers, tillages, mutt-knuckle, the maple leaves flip black. Crank down your parasol, get in and lock the door, burn your notebook, that last open door. The white paint on it is flaking, the wood underneath is pioneer. There are no more silver, early wrong, mortaldom words to find. Song found out cannot be dewormed. The green we want has been shot. This morning the lake is fogged in, and I have been dizzy at my laces. The snapping turtle has lain her soft white eggs again in sand at our dock for the raccoon to dig up and ravage. In the catacombs of the Morel, my grackle sheen has no reliquary. I soot and flicker the tangents of a faith diminished until haggard and careless. I prompt the embers with a sleeve of birch bark and a crumpled grocery sale flyer, little photos of relish and cuts of lamb. Giant puppets made from salvage are cheered as they cross ancient borders. There is nowhere to keep my inverted nuthatch, no clearing in which to hear its rustle. Time is up. In museum lobbies, full of methane and noses of chalk. I dump ash into the scuttle. Each gesture hesitates, knocks and waits. Again my fire catches as I puff at it. Again, wordlessness glows. It has been my luck to be afraid to be large. I'm always hiding in the tall oaks as it gets dark. The lights are coming on in our rented farmhouse. My mother is opening a cupboard and reaches up. Around my head, I have an old necktie knotted tight to dull the migraine's roar. In the black sway of the field, I hear the shrug of a song arriving. It is foolish, but mine. The bobolink song, lost talk, backing up, fossilized notes. I am not coming in, and I am not shutting up, unless you make me. But to make me, you have to find me. The rent is low, the townships are wayward. I am not proud or tired. Thank you. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you so much to Phil. Thank you to everybody who made the effort to come out tonight and everybody who's watching at home as well. I would like to put our hands together one last time for my father for Rob Peterson, if we could. And everyone have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for making it wonderful.